Hello and welcome back to the Building HVAC Science Podcast, where it's our goal here to create better, more knowledgeable HVAC and building performance technicians by helping these two professions better understand each other with the ultimate goal of making customers happy in the homes they live in and the buildings they work in. Today's guest exemplifies that. In fact, today's guest is one of those people I mention sometimes in the outro of the podcast where I talk about different resources to listen to. It's none other than Steven Rardon, who's really a YouTube celebrity. He's also the owner of Smart Home Comfort. Steven shares with us his journey in the HVAC industry, which began at age 17. He talks about pivotal moments. One of the interesting things I wrote down in my notes as we were speaking was, do it well rather than fast. Speed comes with reps. It almost sounds like the way you learn how to play a musical instrument. Just do it well and then work on your speed. Someone else will always do it faster, but you want to do it better. That's kind of his motto. He talks about advanced testing and measurement tools, talks about how he got a YouTube video with a lot of commentary going on it, which really kind of helped raise his profile. And he advises aspiring HVAC professionals to use all the modern learning resources you can get your hands on, because there are so many, and continually strive for excellence. Again, going back to that, do it well rather than do it fast. Speed comes with reps. Okay, I'll finish talking right now and let you get into this episode where Eric and I get a chance to speak with Steven Rardon, going from Gopher to Guru, Steven's HVAC journey.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Building HVAC Science Podcast. Eric Kaiser here, Bill Spohn over there. And man, we've got a special treat today, Bill. We've got a celebrity, a YouTube celebrity with us. And if you've been hanging around HVAC YouTube for a little while, you're probably going to know this guy. Mr. Steven Rardon is with us today. Steven, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely.
Your YouTube channel, you started that. Now you have your own business. What's it called?
My business is Smart Home Comfort. It was a rebrand after we originally started with the name Rardon Home Performance, but that was going to be a hard branding story to tell. So through input from our customers and industry experts, we came back with Smart as the brand and then Home Comfort as the descriptor.
Very nice. You're the kind of person that absorbs a lot of advice. Then you take action. So tell us where you started into your career in HVAC.
That's a long time ago. I started in HVAC when I was 17, which would be a long time ago.
That's as much as you'll say.
And at the time, I was just looking for a job, and my girlfriend's dad was a little one-man heating and air conditioning show at that point. He had been bigger, but he had cut back and was just himself and what he called spot labor. So I worked with him for in the neighborhood of 3 years, and I was literally his go for the hammer, go for the screwdriver, go for the bucket of Freon. But at a point, I felt like I deserved more money, and it wasn't an arrogant position. I just was beginning to develop a need for bigger financial reimbursements, I guess. And I went to him and he said, I'm sorry, I'm pretty well tapped out on what I can afford, but wherever you go, I'm pretty sure you'll be fine. He said, there will always be someone faster, but you'll have a hard time finding someone better if you pay attention to what you're doing and you do it well rather than trying to be fast, because you will develop speed. The more you do something, the better you get at it, you develop speed. That was the beginning of it. Don't remember how long the relationship with his daughter lasted, but it was a little longer than the employment. And I moved on to a company that did new construction, heating and air conditioning. And that's where I got a pretty good feeling for the installation side of things. But there was a limitation at that point on how much money you could make again. And so I realized that I had to transition from installer to service maintenance tech, where you had an opportunity to make a better pay scale. So I worked for a company for fairly short term as a junior service maintenance tech. And then I started looking for jobs outside of the state. That search led me to a company in Durham, North Carolina that agreed to talk to me. So we drove down on a long weekend and talked to the hiring manager, and he said, "You don't know enough for me to pay you what you want." So for the next 6 months, I put my nose to the grindstone in order to learn the things that were on his pay scale list, and called him back 6 months later. I said, "I'd like to have another conversation." He said, "Okay, come on down." We drove down again. He still said he couldn't pay me what I wanted, but he got me close enough to what I wanted that I knew that if I did a little overtime, made a couple of commissions, I'd be all right. So we moved down here in 2005 to North Carolina. If I'm remembering it correctly, I worked for that company for about 10 months and changed companies to another company that did residential changeout versus new construction. And that's where I spent most of my time here in North Carolina. I won't mention the name because nationally it won't matter. But I spent 5 years there, and I transitioned from install helper to install foreman to maintenance technician to service technician. And then I got tired of being the pinch hitter between service and install, depending on how the wind blew that day. I would run a service truck or maintenance truck or swing around and grab an install. So I went chasing a manager position, and I tried one other company for about 90 days. And I got a call from a friend that I'd worked with previously that said, "This company's looking for a good install manager. You should come down and talk to him." So I got hired in directly as install manager. And then there were some issues, my own issue versus the company procedure. And so I left that position that I walked right into what I thought I wanted. And I went back to being an installer/technician for the next 6.5 years, I think, 2 or 3 companies. And then I finally said, "You know what? I've been chasing this management trainer position, and I can't find it working for somebody else. I'll just start my own company," because that was 6 to 7 years ago now, I think. "And if I fail, I'm still young enough to try again and work for somebody else." I haven't failed yet. I've spent a lot of money and I'm in debt for some things, but the business has proven that my perspective on service is a viable business option.
We met on the phone a long time ago.
Long time ago.
But we met in person maybe the first time at this mastermind that Brian had, an event he had. And I just looked up the date. It was October of 2017. Was that somewhat pivotal to some of this, or were things already going on and grinding in your mind?
Actually, I started the company officially September 14th, 2017. Unofficially, incorporation papers weren't filed, but September 1st, 2017 was when I ran my first service call or whatever call for myself. And that mastermind was pretty incredible because I did get the opportunity to meet some of the people that had shaped a lot of what I had done in the years since I started YouTube. So that was 4 years in, I think. And I had met all of you guys, maybe not Kaiser. I don't remember Kaiser specifically, but I had met Bill.
He's got a forgettable face, by the way.
Jim, so many other people in the industry on the tools and test instrument side, more specifically. It was a pivotal moment in it all because one of the things that I remember was, what is your 5-year plan, or where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years? And at the time that I answered that question, I felt like I needed to talk a big financial game. And when I got back and listened to myself in memory, I was like, that's not you. You're not out to make $50 million in revenue a year. That's not you. You're actually the type of person, I'm the type of person to focus on doing the job better and come hell or high water, do it better. If it costs me money, do it better, but figure it out and do it to the best that you can.
Before that, you'd been, because this was Rardon Home Performance is what you launched in September.
Mm-hmm.
You got bit by the home performance or building science, whatever you want to call it, bug before that. How did that happen?
Ever since I had started in HVAC, I wanted to do my job better. And it's like trying to be a good mathematician. There are certain things you can do, but you can't do them faster without a calculator. You can do them faster, but long form math is not a fast thing. So I was always trying to find a way to do my job better, whether it be more detailed, more efficient, or faster. Tools quickly became the clear answer to doing your job better one way or another. And at some point, you start getting frustrated over the fact that you can't make the system work any better. You've dialed it in to the best of your ability, and it still doesn't perform. What's wrong? And as soon as you recognize that you can only do so much with the box, you have to look at what's connected to the box and what the boxes are connected to. And that took me down the path to find Corbett Lunsford and his Building Performance, Green Energy, whatever the company was at that point. And when I got that bug, there was the concept of claim what you want to be versus what you are, or something along that thought process. And so I named it Rardon Home Performance because I wanted to be an expert in home performance aspects and knowing every piece of it, even though I wasn't there yet.
Talk about where you're at now and then connect those timeframes. What do you do now besides sit here and talk with people?
What do I do outside of podcast interviews? That's going to be an interesting one because I don't really think in that manner, but Bill always challenges me.
He's good at that, isn't he?
Before you started, you said you have opportunities that come and then you do maintenance, and then opportunities come back again and you do maintenance. Are those opportunities home performance or system problems more so? So you're getting known for that as a specialty?
Yes. Okay. So to answer the question with the description of the question, the business at this point is a notable project or a notable opportunity, and then the bread and butter of every HVAC company, which is service and maintenance. We're not advertising in any major way. So we don't get a lot of like, my AC's broke phone calls in the heat waves. We get calls from our customers or people that have received a glowing review from our customers, a direct referral. The opportunities that we have are usually customers that have already spent all the money they had to play with on somebody else's flashy claims, but they still have problems. And so they start looking for solutions to what their problems are. And I think I was probably the first name to go on Corbett Lunsford's list. He emailed me about that, and I broke my fingers trying to respond as soon as possible.
You got cramps.
Yeah.
And for anybody that doesn't know, Corbett Lunsford curates a list of HVAC and other contractors, building performance contractors around the country that he trusts and says are really good.
And that's actually not the crux of it. He doesn't actually claim to know that they're any good.
Oh, okay.
The contractors on that list are willing to trust science and measurements to deliver a result. And so I don't, when I put my name on the list or the company on the list, I don't still am a fledgling in offering load calculations and duct design and stuff because I have always been on the wrenches, not in the office. But if you give me a manual J, a manual D, You give me the blueprint, I will nail that sucker as close as humanly possible to what it tells me I need to do. I'm really good at following instructions. Some people would say otherwise, but you give me that blueprint, I got no problem. If it tells me that I only need 1.5 tons for a 3,000 square foot house, by God, we'll deliver the best 1.5 ton system in a 3,000 square foot house possible. We do projects for people that have real problems that need solved. And they usually come at a pretty inflated price tag because it takes money to solve problems. But we also try to offer consultation to people that say that they can't manage the price tag that we've offered. And so we'll do oversight. Don't even have to be involved in the process, but after it's all said and done, come in, inspect, assess, run the measure quick report, run the duct test, and we go from a big project, all hands on deck, to we got to catch up on maintenance now because we're still working on maintenance in June, July for the summertime.
We focused a lot on the business and how you got there to what you're doing. Let's take a shift and go back to, you mentioned a category, measure quick. Go back to like where you first started to get involved with, let's say, more advanced test and measurement equipment. Where was it? Why was it? Who did you interact with?
My first venture into digital gauges was like the beginning of all of that, was with TruTech. But it was because I had an opinion on a device that was going to launch soon. And all of the opinions that I found online were negative. Oh, it's $800. Oh, it doesn't have a display. Oh, I have to use my smartphone. Oh, I'm going to have to charge my smartphone all the time. Oh, I can't answer a phone call because I'm using it for this device. And all of those things were like not drawbacks to me because I took very meticulous paper notes in a tiny little notepad in my pocket. And about 10:30 every day, that notepad was soaked in sweat. And I couldn't read anything that I'd written down.
I can relate to that.
The ability to record that data in a digital format was like, this eliminates so much of my frustrations with the way things are now. Not only do you not have to do a stupid, simple math calculation to figure out superheat or subcool, but you can also record it at intervals over time. And it was a way to do better, easier. So I made a video simply saying that I don't see these as drawbacks. I think that there's huge benefits to this method. And I got a lot of feedback from it. And I liked the attention, to be honest.
Wait, was it all positive feedback?
No. There were definitely people that didn't think I had anything good to say at all. But through that, I got an opportunity. And the only thing that I can imagine is Jim Bergman was working with TruTech much more closely at that time. And I had a TruTech account with address and phone number and email. But I get this call from an Ohio phone number. And I'm like, at that point, I wasn't ignoring everything that came from Ohio. Now I do, because I know it's not legitimate anymore. Spam is horrible. But he said, I see what you're doing, and we want to help you in that. And so I was going to give away this iManifold device. And Jim called me and said, hey, we're going to reimburse you or replace it for you when you give it away. And I said, well, that's incredible. Let's do this. But that introduction to people that are incredibly smarter than me, honestly, in the time since 2014, when I posted those first opinion videos to now, I've had more of an education in what I do for a living than in the first 15 years prior to that. 25 years in, the past 10 years have been exponential growth comparative to the first 15. Mind-blowing to think of where I was and where we are today. And it's also mind-boggling to think that it's been that long.
I guess it's going back in your conversation here. You put your nose to the grindstone. You decided to do something. Putting those videos out there isn't really an easy lift.
No, I really wish you guys did record these because the physical feedback would be nice sometimes.
The hand waving, you like the hand waving?
Hand waving, nods, shakes, do something. That has been my method.
I'm curious to know, like you said, you sat there, you worked for 6 months, put your nose to the grindstone, started learning more. At that point, what were you learning? What more were you going for? And what did you use for a resource for that? Obviously, that's been a few years ago now.
Yeah. My resource at that point was literally the guy I was working with, the senior installer, the senior technician, whatever. But I needed to learn how to braze, and I needed to learn wiring different types of thermostats. It's crazy to think that there was a time I did not understand red and white wires going to an AC unit. I didn't know, what does red do? What does white do? Can I switch them? It's crazy to think that that was something I had to figure out or ask some questions about. But they had a scale for payment, and it said, if you know how to do this, this, and this, you get into this pay scale. If you know how to do this, this, and this, you get into this scale. And so I took that list of things I needed to hit the next level, and that's what I decided to learn. I still have a bucket with a piece of copper that I cut open with a pair of red tin snips and then soldered it back together as a handle to a 5-gallon bucket. And that was one of my educational methods to figure out how to fix something that was broken that needed brazing. It's on a bucket in my garage with the same piece of copper. It's crazy to think that I've held it for 25 years or whatever it's been.
Wow. And that's a challenge to think back about that. But I think it's really awesome you talk about that because it shows that we don't all start out with this knowledge. We got to learn it from somewhere. We got to learn it from somebody, whether it be reading books, reading articles. Now we have books and more books, or we have the electronics on the internet. We have YouTube, things like that weren't available when you were having to learn all that stuff.
I would have killed somebody for the 3D models that Brian and who's the company that does the 3D training?
Dirk Nauman.
Or
Interplay, probably.
Yeah, Interplay. Talk about a game changer, at least for the way I learned it.
It sounds like you'd be screaming like, there is no excuse anymore.
Yeah, pretty much. It's crazy to think that I'm a senior technician. The guys that I knew that were 25 years in were gods to me starting out. And to think that I've attained godship. But I don't see it. Anybody that thinks they've made it, I think has something seriously left to learn.
Do you think you're at the level of those people you thought were gods at that point? Do you think you've actually surpassed some of their knowledge yet? Or where do you see yourself at?
That's funny. I receive phone calls from my first boss asking me questions now. So the student has surpassed the sensei. But I don't see myself as being that intelligent. I'm not intelligent. I'm tenacious, and I'm willing to chew on it until I figure it out. And I'm certainly way better putting my hands on it than trying to work remotely. If I played tech support for somebody, I'd go into the warehouse and start ripping a unit apart, being like, okay, let's trace it out. Your diagram is no good to me.
Tech support is a challenging thing to do over the phone. So do you use the Measure Quick live view where you can remote view things at all? Because you've got people working for you now, right?
It would be interesting if we had one of these interviews every year along the way of when I started. When I started solo. I think it was about a year and I hired my first guy. And then maybe a year later, I hired my second guy. First guy left sometime after I hired the second guy. Hired a third guy. Hired a fourth guy. But it was still only 4 of us because the first guy left. And then third guy left, second guy left. And I've still got the fourth guy myself. But I did hire my wife about 3 years ago to run the office because I would not answer the phone. If you're out in the field and your hands are stuck inside a compressor, you're not answering the phone.
Yeah, not easily. And if you are, you're not going to be able to pay full attention to that customer that's calling you. You're not going to be able to take the necessary notes. You're not going to do them a good service. You're not going to pay attention to them well.
To answer the actual question, yes, I use the remote technician view, whatever it's called in MeasureQuick, on a fairly regular basis with my maintenance tech. He had one system in the near past where he diagnosed it as a low refrigerant charge all on his own. And I was very proud of him for clarifying what looked like a low refrigerant charge. And it turned out to not be a low refrigerant charge. So he's a little gun shy and will spot check me or check with me and stream his data so that we can talk through the numbers together. That is, if nothing else was available of the reports or the other features, I honestly think that streaming of data to an office senior technician would be worth a monthly subscription all by itself. If there was a way to do that, even without the other things. You can send any junior tech out to check a system. As long as he knows where to put his probes and you can help confirm that he's got everything in the right place, that feedback is incredible.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, is as long as he puts the tech puts the probes in the right place, because there's nothing that will screw up a diagnosis faster than getting probes in the wrong place and getting inaccurate data or bad data coming in.
You put my discharge temperature on a suction line and we got problems.
Even if you put a discharge temperature clamp onto the liquid line or something like that, you're going to get all kinds of weird stuff going on, and it's going to be something's not going to work right. Or if you have a probe that's affected by sunlight and you don't cover it up when it's in direct sunlight, which some of the probes are very, very susceptible to that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not anything unique about probes or anything like that. Just to clarify, that's pretty much every contact thermometer out there is susceptible to sun.
Physics, yeah.
Yeah, it's darn physics always getting in the way.
You said you rebranded as Smart Home Comfort.
Mm-hmm.
What led you to do that? Because I think it's a really cool icon. I've seen your trucks on Facebook and social media, all very cool, very sharp, very clean, communicates really well. What prompted you to do that, and where'd you get the creative on that?
I went searching for feedback from the interwebs, and I took my Rardon Home Performance brand, so to speak, to a race car wrap designer. And it was just a connection that I got through some of the people I'd met through YouTube for somebody that could design a wrap for me. Like, he didn't have any particular credentials other than I put wraps on cars and I can build a design based on a shape. So I took that design to Facebook and I posted it in one of the groups. And minutes after I had posted it, I get a Facebook message from Todd Lyles of Service Excellence. He runs a coaching sales training company out of Texas, I believe. And his message was very short and sweet. Do not use that design. Call Dan Antonelli. And I was like, who's Dan? He's like, just call Dan.
Dan's the man.
So when I called Dan, he explained, rather than just saying, this is a bad design, he explained what was wrong with it. And this is where, Bill, you should really do a video podcast, because I could send you the wrap design and you could show it to people and they could be like, yeah, that would have been awesome, but it would have sucked. It was a really cool wrap. It would have stood out very well, but it had no brand story whatsoever. It didn't convey anything. And I would have had to list 35,000 different services on the back of the truck and a QR code to communicate. But It was just I knew I didn't want to be a white van forever. So I took my brand to the internet, trying to find out where we could go with it, what we could build out of it. It very quickly, thankfully, was shown to me that it wasn't going to go anywhere, and it would take a lot of investment to make it go anywhere. And then the name actually came from something that one of my customers suggested. We were working on one of those big projects between a bunch of maintenance. And I wish I could easily find the text message, but she wrote out this descriptive name that basically boiled down to smart home comfort. But we took out like 150,000 BTU oil furnace and a 5-ton air conditioner from her house and put back a 3-ton heat pump with the help of the man Hausch.
Yeah.
Michael Hausch. He helped me with the duct design and layout for that. And it was an incredible project. It took us like 5 weeks to finish, but it wasn't for the fact that it was complicated. We started it. We ripped her furnace out the day before we had this Arctic freeze blow through. So we're trying to put it back while one of us is running a service call for a broken heater or whatever. Like, it was just not a good time to try to do a major project with 2 guys. But she's been a customer since. It's been incredible. We've got some of the best customers ever. When my wife agreed or asked if she could come work with me, I said, "You're going to have to quit your day job. You cannot do what we do on a part-time basis. It would be lunacy. We would murder each other very quickly." And she said, "I really don't want to deal with angry people." I said, "Christina, we don't have angry customers." We don't. We have so many customers that when COVID price hikes came and I was giving a bid on replacement, but they weren't quite ready yet, they just wanted to get an idea, I said, "This price is good for maybe 2 weeks. Like, I'll give you 30 days, but if you don't pull the trigger by then, this price is going to change." And on at least 3 occasions, customers told me, "I want you to stay in business. You need to charge me what you need to charge me to stay in business. If that means that this price changes $2,000 more, $3,000 more, I need you to do that, because if you don't, you won't be around for me to be a customer."
Is there something in the water there?
I think it's the relational business that I'm trying to build. I'm not building an opportunity to get in the door and break your neck or steal your money. I'm building a relationship with you as if you were family. And they always say family and friends should be the ones that are willing to pay you, not the ones that are expecting freebies. But yeah, I'm working on developing a business that values relationship over revenue, not to the point of losing money, but to the point of, we serve you. One of the things that I hear a lot lately, and I just saw a video on Facebook the other day talking about whoever invented 24-hour service must hate their employees. And I think the perspective that some business owner invented that is completely wrong, because it was a service provider that wanted to serve when the need was there. At least that's my perspective. I tell my clients constantly, if you have a problem at 11 p.m., call me. I want to at least know what I'm getting into that night, so that by tomorrow morning, I can already be working on a solution, even if I can't fix it now. If you call me at 8 a.m. the next morning, my day's already booked, and I may not be able to get anything spooled up. So call me when it's a problem. If I can't make it, I can't make it. But if I can help, I want to help now. I want to help when it's a problem for you. And poor planning on your part does dictate an emergency on my part, if you're willing to pay for the emergency services. I don't know. I think I have a different perspective. I know a lot of companies locally aren't running 24-hour service. And for a 2-man shop to offer 24-hour service is scary for the guys offering it, but I don't think there's any way I'd want to serve my clients differently than to serve them when their need arises.
Makes a lot of sense.
How do we transition from that to anything else?
Maybe we transition to go look at the show notes, go look at his website, go look at his YouTube, go look at Smart Home Comfort.
Yeah, he's got a couple you started putting a few videos out this year, right?
Yeah, I should touch on that because you're probably going to air this before I air my next video. I started a new series on Pandora's Box, fixing a house with problems or something like that, because I have a problematic master suite. It's not comfortable if I close the door. So
is this in your own house or is it
my own home?
Okay.
Yep. But I also have a customer with the same problem. So in order to have an intimate understanding of how to solve that, I said, let me try to solve mine. And I started the video pre-season for cooling, and I haven't had the time nor the energy to bother trying to return to it because my attic's 140 degrees. So I will be returning to that series this fall when the weather cools down a bit and I'm able to get into my attic to continue.
When you won't literally sweat your beard off by going into your attic.
Yeah.
And Steven's got a nice beard. You don't want him to sweat that off. It's kind of a thing with him.
It is. It's been around for a while now in different forms and shapes and sizes.
So what closing thoughts would you leave for our listeners?
Take the opportunities that you have with today's available learning methods and run with them. If I had all of the information I have now when I started, I can only imagine where I would end up, where I would be now from then. Didn't get nearly the learning that I should have from the first 15 years that I spent in the trade. And the past 10 has been an exponential growth. And if it started today, my track to the knowledge I have now would be incredible with what's available.
One follow-up question for you. Do you think the struggle that you went through during those early years make the resources you have now more valuable?
Absolutely. And that's the funny thing about it, isn't it?
Yeah.
The techs today don't have to work that hard to find answers.
And you're not riding them down because of that.
Nope.
But you're just saying it very different for you.
Yeah. We had to actually go through and read manuals, physical manuals. Now you can jump on the Blue On app and find any manual for 55 billion different pieces of equipment.
Yeah, I used to have 2 to 3 shelves in the back of my van, just literally filled with paper manuals, not to mention the center console in my van filled with paper manuals of all kinds of various sorts and sizes.
It's a different world today.
It's a different world today. That'd be a good title for this video or this podcast. Sorry, should be a video. Damn. Well, Steven, thanks for coming on, sharing your story with us, and look forward to the next time I get to see you in person. But until then, we stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Steven.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Building HVAC Science Podcast. The Building HVAC Science Podcast is a production of TruTech Tools Limited. In full disclosure, I'm owner of TruTech, and the opinions voiced are those of my guests, my co-host, or myself, depending on who's speaking, of course. If you're in the market for tools or test instruments mentioned in our podcast, take a look at what TruTech Tools carries. TruTechTools.com. And you can use the offer code HVACBS for a nice discount. Other trade-related resources and influence include, let me start it off with Steven Rardon, our guest today. HVAC Reefer Guy, Tool Pros, Service Business Mastery, Quality HVAC, HVAC Overtime, HVACR Videos, HomeDiagnosis.tv, AC Service Tech, MeasureQuick, HVA Chicks, The Misfits of HVAC, HVACR School, and HVAC Shop Talk. Please take advantage. Those are some of the resources, only some of the resources that Steven mentions or alludes to in our conversation today. In any case, we thank you for listening to this podcast and really look forward to your feedback, what you heard today. You can reach out to us at marketing@TruTechTools.com. TRUTECHTOOLS.com. And thank you for listening to this podcast. But remember, some of the topics we discuss require technical training for proper interpretation or safe execution. So if you're trained pro, then you can go right ahead. If you're not, please consult with and hire a trained pro. Thanks again, and we look forward to having you back next time on the Building HVAC Science Podcast. Take care.